Big leaders chase big ideas. It's what defines their legacy. It's what gives them influence beyond their borders and a place in history books. Joe Biden is no different. The biggest challenge of his time is China. Obviously, the US president wants to win the battle against Beijing. But how will he do that? A traditional war does not make sense. His predecessor fought a trade war. Biden is also fighting a propaganda war. His weapon of choice now is democracy. Listen to this.
We have to prove democracy still works, that our government still works, and we can deliver for our people.
We have to prove democracy still works. Prove how? With a grand summit. It's happening today. Joe Biden is hosting what he calls a Summit of Democracies. It's a 2-day-long virtual event. Leaders from 110 democracies across the world are invited. This includes India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the leader of the world's largest democracy. Now, why is Biden hosting this summit? It's basically a show of strength, a message for China. This is what you're up against. That's what America is telling China, an alliance of democracies. But politics, you see, is complicated business. Beyond this summit, and beyond the clear exclusion of China, what can this alliance deliver? Can it neutralize China's authoritarianism? Also, is America the best country to be hosting it? The best country to decide what is a democracy and what isn't? I ask this because recently the same United States of America was labeled a quote-unquote backsliding democracy. So while sending out a message to China is fine, can the US really sit in judgment of other democracies? On Gravitas tonight, we'll talk about all of this. First of all, let's tell you about the summit. The idea was first pitched by candidate Joe Biden. It was something that he promised when he was running for president. Biden said he wants to preserve democracies and prevent democratic states from backsliding.
Will we allow the backward slide of rights and democracy to continue unchecked? Or will we, together, have a vision and the vision, not just a vision, the vision and courage to once more lead the march of human progress and human freedom forward?
A year after taking office, Biden is fulfilling his promise. So what's on the agenda? 3 issues are up for discussion. Number 1, defending against authoritarianism. Number 2, fighting corruption. And number 3, promoting respect for human rights. It couldn't be more obvious. The agenda is designed to embarrass 2 American adversaries, Russia and China, both of whom have not been invited for this summit. And that does not come as a surprise. But it seems like Moscow and Beijing were, after all, expecting an invite. They have launched a fierce attack on this summit. It began with a joint letter. Top diplomats of Russia and China in Washington wrote this letter. They say today's event is a product of quote-unquote Cold War thinking. Russia has also issued a separate statement. It is 2,000 words long. It describes the many failings of the American democracy, what they call the illegal democracy, encroachment of democracy, as Russia puts it, the illegal encroachment of democracy in other countries. And Donald Trump's charge that the 2020 election was rigged. Russia has brought up all of this. And if you think that's below the belt, wait till you hear what the Chinese have been saying. Beijing is angry that Taiwan got an invite for the summit. Their response is an ugly propaganda war. Allow me to read what the Global Times said about Joe Biden's summit. I'm quoting. President Biden's initiative in holding the Summit for Democracy resembles a mistress of a brothel teaching morale to schoolgirls. That language should tell you how desperate and upset Beijing is. China wants to discredit this summit, so much so that the Communist Party is rebranding China. The State Council in Beijing has released a paper. Now, this is the top governing body of China. The paper they've released says China is also a democracy. In fact, the Communist Party believes that China is a democracy that works. This is the mother of all spins. And the wolf warriors are using this argument in a bid to discredit the US.
No matter how the US glosses over itself, its true face of seeking hegemony under the guise of democracy has long been exposed to the world. The so-called Summit for Democracy will only go down in history as a manipulator and saboteur of democracy.
On paper, China does have 8 odd political parties, but like I said, only on paper. In practice, China is the opposite of democracy. And this is not even a debate, this is a fact. As for America, they weaponize democracy to take the moral and strategic high ground. On more occasions than one, the United States has compromised on democratic principles for diplomatic gains. And frankly, this summit of democracies is no different. Look at the guest list. Leaders with questionable democratic credentials have got an invite, like Brazil's Jair Bolsonaro, a known admirer of dictatorship. Brazil was ruled by the army from 1964 to 1985, and Bolsonaro thinks that was, and I'm quoting, that was a very good period for his country, the dictatorship. The president of the Philippines, Rodrigo Duterte, he's also attending. He's accused of committing crimes against humanity by the International Criminal Court. The Biden administration invited Pakistan too, but Imran Khan has decided to not attend. We'll discuss why later. But the question is this the company that Joe Biden wants to keep in his democracy club? Is this how he wants to save democracies, by partnering with Pakistan? Now look at the countries that have been left out. Perhaps this is a more controversial list. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, they've both been left out. Are they not democracies? Countries like Bolivia and Sierra Leone rank much better than Brazil on democratic indices, but they've been left out. If the purpose of this summit is only to annoy China and Russia, it may have achieved it. But if America's mission is to uphold democratic values, to force dictators to course correct, then Joe Biden's summit of democracies falls woefully short. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.